Hello and welcome to the Hibs Observer pre-match show with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Patrick McPartlin to look ahead to Hibs against Kilmarnock in the Scottish Premiership. Patrick, how are we?
Very good. Still in that sort of weird sort of point between Christmas and New Year where you're not kind of sure what day it is or, where you are. You're sort of eating cheese and not much else. And, just that sort of,
A haze. Days of the week
yeah,
cease
a
to
festive,
exist.
yeah, a festive haze. But very well. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. In the exact same situation. Had to check what day it was earlier on, but I'm I am assured that it is Saturday, and then we have Hibs hosting Kilmarnock on Sunday. I mean, it's going to be a really, really important game, which we'll get to in due course. But just as always, before we start, a word for our sponsor. Good Vibes Giveaways are proud to sponsor the Hibs Observer and offer fantastic prizes to fans of the club. Prizes change weekly and include tech and gadgets, days out, weekends away, tax-free cash, and even Oasis tickets. So get your tickets now at www.goodvibesgiveaways.com. So, yeah, we'll get on to the Kilmarnock game in due course. But, I mean, I feel like we should probably try and just bask in the glow of a Hibs derby victory at Tynecastle for a wee bit longer. Obviously, we did our instant reaction to the game after the final whistle on Boxing Day. We've not had a chance to really kind of properly sit down and discuss it. I mean, it was just a kind of great day all round for Hibs, the players, the fans, the manager. A long time coming. How do you reflect on it a couple of days later?
Yeah, I think you're right with what you say there. I think Hibs have not won as many derbies as they probably should have over the past few years, in terms of how they've played quite often. I mean, even look back to the first derby of the season, which should have been 3 points, and individual errors lead to it being a 1-1 draw. I feel like Hearts have done that more to Hibs than Hibs have done that to Hearts over the years. Certainly seems like that anyway. But I think, just if you look at the game as a whole, it was important for Hibs to put in a performance. It was important for them to get a result. I wrote a piece beforehand saying that, that sort of good win at Aberdeen following the wins against Ross County, Motherwell, good performance against Celtic. They really needed a derby victory to kind of prove there wasn't a flash in the pan. And I think it was important that they did get they did get the 3 points, but also the manner of the victory as well. Like, it obviously everyone wants a kind of 3 or 4-0 procession in the derby, but I think the fact that they went ahead and there was a bit of good fortune, with it sort of coming off the Hearts defender, with there being the VAR check, and then misfortune when Rocky Bashiri tries to clear Shankland's header and puts it through his own net. But I think we've seen a lot of this Hibs team recently sort of responding really well to adversity and sort of being able to bounce back. Individuals have done it, whether they've been dropped from the team and they've then come back in. Martin Boyle, Josh Campbell, Ellie Yuan. And I think as well, collectively they've shown that, they do have sort of, that kind of metal that they can, they don't sort of crumble when something like that happens. When there is like a bit of adversity, where there is something that maybe doesn't follow the game plan, they can adapt and they can, react to it. And I think that's more important than, or that's maybe the most important factor in the victory. And I think Hearts would obviously have their struggles at the moment, but so have Hibs. And I think it does feel premature to say that's everything sorted. David Gray's the Scottish Pep Guardiola, or maybe that's a bad example given current form. But I think the important thing is that, like, things look to be heading in the right direction. We talk about this sort of players only meeting that seems to be the catalyst for this turnaround in form and results. And I think it's any sort of victory, whoever Hibs were playing on Boxing Day, any sort of victory would have been good in the sort of wider in the grander scheme of things. But the fact that it was against Hearts, the fact that it was against the fact that it was at Tynecastle, and the manner of the victory as well. You get pegged back, you keep pressing, you get a late winner, you hold out. It's all the things that Hibs weren't very good at doing in the first part of the season, and it does sort of feel like things are starting to come together a bit more. I think there's still a long way to go. I mean, I think David Gray would probably say this himself, and we know how much he's gone on about his never get too high, never get too low. And I think it's you could probably expand on this a little bit more, but Hibs traditionally have this real Achilles heel of putting in a really good performance or getting a really good result, sometimes against the odds, and then not being able to follow it up. So they'll maybe get a result against Celtic or Rangers or Hearts, and then they have a game at home against a team, excuse me, like Kilmarnock, where you think they should have a good chance of getting the 3 points and they don't. So what they've got this weekend is a chance to sort of show that this isn't a kind of a temporary positive blip, that it's not just a flash in the pan, that things are heading in the right direction, and they can build on results like this and kind of keep that momentum going, and I suppose kind of keep proving that they are actually a good team, and it's just taking time for things to click. Because to be fair, yeah, a lot of the players and the management have been saying that since the start of the season. And we saw flashes in the Premier Sports Cup group stages, we saw flashes in the friendlies that there are good players in the team, and it was players and management felt a bit at a loss to kind of explain why it just wasn't working. But they seem to have. There's obviously been the formation shift. There's been bringing people in and out, and they just seem to have happened upon this formula, which maybe a bit unfair. They've found the formula that works for them, and I think it's the important thing now is just being able to sort of continue that sort of upward trajectory. Keep pushing to get into the top six and then take it from there. But I just think it would have been very Hibs to go to Tynecastle when Hearts were vulnerable and not get a result. I mean, people say the form book goes out the window when it comes to derbies. I'm not 100% sure it always does. And it's also worth remembering, it's a congested festive fixture. Calendar, there's games coming thick and fast, and I think Hibs to go up to Aberdeen and get a resounding victory, come back a few days later, beat Hearts at Tynecastle. Good results on their own, good results in the grand scheme of things, but it won't really matter much if they don't manage to get another positive result against Kilmarnock tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch a wee bit on. There's obviously been a turnaround in results, but I think just kind of the most striking thing, aside from that, is just the turnaround and the sort of feeling around the team. And I feel like results will do that. That kind of that solves all winning games, which is obviously what it's all about when you play football. But I think it was only a few weeks ago that the players were getting accused left, right, and centre of all sorts. It's like there's no character in the team. There's no fortitude. They go to pieces at the first sign of adversity. There was, a kind of narrative building as well, like, oh, well, there's so many guys out of contract at the end of the season, like, obviously they're not going to be, playing for their badge, they're going to be thinking about themselves. There was just kind of all sorts thrown at it. And then you see, I think, even in the Aberdeen game, the level of grit and the work that people were putting in, and you see it towards the end of the derby. There's guys throwing themselves in front of the ball, guys celebrating tackles, and then you see the scenes between the fans and the players and the management at full time. So it's just, as well as the sort of momentum on the pitch, and then it's breeding this sort of, and it's for the first time it feels like in a good while, a sort of synergy between the players and the fans. It feels like there's a kind of a positive relationship building there again, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And we obviously saw at Easter Road earlier in the season, like the atmosphere was really toxic at times, really poisonous. We saw incidents between players and fans during the match, after the match, and it's one of those things that you think that this isn't helping anyone. And I know there's that whole kind of narrative about players have to be able to block out what they hear from the sidelines, but I mean, it's a bit difficult if you're sort of like trying to get results, it's not happening for you, and you've got somebody questioning your desire, your ability, all of this stuff. And I think it's really important that, like, if the fans can see that the players are sort of knocking their pan and that they're putting their bodies on the line, that they're like just as desperate to get results as the fans are, then that, as you say, creates this sort of synergy. And I don't think it can be overlooked how powerful that can be. That if you've got the players playing the way they are, as you say, celebrating tackles like goals, and just this, calling it a siege mentality almost feels a little bit doing them a disservice, but it does feel a little bit like that. Like, it's just block off the noise from outside, block off any talk about the out contract players not giving 100%. But I think now when you certainly, like you say, the scenes after the derby, even the scenes at Pittodrie as well. There's obviously there's a connection between the players and the fans that I don't think was there previously, and it's broadly the same players as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know David Gray's made changes. I know there's been some quite high profile changes, like changing your goalkeeper, Rocky Bashiri coming back in, Martin Boyle's kind of resurgence, Josh Campbell coming back in. But I think it's you've got players who at the start of the season, just like Nicky Cadden and Jack Iredale are a good example. That folk were a bit dismissive. Nicky Cadden was, we're only signing him because his brother's already here, and Jack Iredale was like, my Bolton supporter mates say that he's useless. Which great writing off signings before you've even seen them play, but I think those two especially, and I'm not just picking this out because it's very easy to confuse them for the other from a distance, but these are guys
just
who
that's done that. Then that's quite reassuring, actually.
Can confirm it's not just. I'm not saying I have because it's but I know there are a few people who I think are. In fact, I think Jack Iredale was saying even his mum gets them mixed up. So
really, well, that says a lot.
It does. But players like that who have come in the summer, who've had to sort of bide their time for a chance in the first team, have come in and have just slotted in like they've been playing there for 3 or 4 seasons. And we've talked about Nicky Cadden and how effective he is in that sort of left wing back role. Jack Iredale's come into the left side of defence. Hibs have been crying out for a left sided centre half for goodness knows how many years. And I think when Iredale was signed, there was a feeling that it was underwhelming from I think some sections of the support, but sometimes that's what you need. You need someone to to just come in, just no nonsense, who can slot in, link up with the the wing back, and I suppose just sort of understand what it means. Like I think we have seen teams in the past, Hibs teams in the past, and players who maybe don't quite grasp what a derby means to the fans. Like obviously the players can come out with their sound bites, but you look at the way the team celebrated goals during the game, tackles during the game, the result afterwards for the fans. There's not a single player there who doesn't get it, and I think that's like David Gray probably is very responsible for helping to kind of foster that feeling. Liam Craig as well has played in enough derbies to understand what it is. Eddie May as well, just for that sort of Hibs background. Craig Sampson as well. I mean, he's got his detractors, but he's been on the winning side in Edinburgh derbies before, or he's been part of the coaching staff, I should say. So they understand what it means. They understand what it means to the fans. They understand what a victory like that can do. And I feel the way things have been going with results turning, performances turning, even the defeat at Celtic, which was the 3-0 maybe didn't reflect the game, but it certainly was a much better performance from Hibs than they put in previously at Celtic Park. And there's just, it feels like it's been building to the scenes we saw at the derby, this this kind of togetherness, if you like, and that can make a heck of a difference. And whether it's at home, whether it's away from home, you need sort of like strong backing, you need vocal backing, and the fans just want to know that the players are putting in 100%, that they care as much as the fans do. And I think what we're seeing is a team, a starting 11 plus subs, and a management team who are very much in the same frame of mind as the fans. And I think that's probably helped the atmosphere get a bit more positive. But as we're saying, that kind of needs to continue. Like the fans feed off the players, the players feed off the fans. So two big games coming up in the next few days: Kilmarnock at home, St Johnstone away, and then Rangers at home after that. But just having that sort of that connection back again, I think could make such a big difference. And I think it's nice to see, because certainly after the 4-1 defeat at Dundee, after the home defeat by St Mirren, you kind of thought there's no coming back for this for some of these players.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. So
yep. Absolutely. It occurred to me while you were speaking there that there's something really, really funny about Nicky Cadden being mistaken for a teammate, and it being Jack Iredale and not his twin brother, who also plays for Hibs. So just a word for before we move on to the Kilmarnock game. I promise we will go on to the Kilmarnock game at some point. Just a word for David Gray, because you just touched on it there. about the St Mirren game and the Dundee game. You were saying it was kind of hard to see a way back for some of these players as well, but it was, to an extent, it was starting to get difficult to see a way back for David Gray at that point. I feel it's always quite alarming when it's almost reached a breaking point when managers are being directly asked after games, do you expect to be here for the next fixture? Basically, just like, are you expecting to be sacked? And there was a few times, there was at least a couple of press conferences where David Gray pretty much had to answer that same question a few times, and I just think he deserves. I kind of wrote about this the other day. Like, we kind of don't know where the season's going to end up. It's still maybe too early to declare Hibs free of all the troubles that have afflicted them over the past couple of seasons. But I just think David Gray deserves a lot of credit from where he found himself to where he's taken himself now, because you're so right in saying it started to look kind of irretrievable. So to then kind of pull that around, and just kind of the way he's handled himself as well, I feel like he's not made any excuses at any point. He's not thrown anybody under the bus. He's been getting asked these awkward questions, and he just gets on with it. And he has, to be fair to him, he's kind of stuck to the line that he says, I believe this will turn. I think there's quality in here, and we've quietly confident. We've still got faith in what we're doing. I know managers are going to say that. They're hardly going to come out and go, yeah, it's done like this.
Yeah,
there's no way back. But he was quite kind of, I don't think forthright's the word, but I think quite steadfast, I think is maybe the right phrase, and kind of repeating that, and you can kind of believe that he actually did believe that it was going to turn. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for this turnaround over the last few weeks, because I don't think many people saw it coming.
No, absolutely not. And I think you mentioned this in one of your pieces that you did, focusing on him, that he never kind of wavered, which, I mean, really difficult when he's having to come out and say the same things and essentially sit there and answer the same questions and just say, yes, individual errors cost us again. But to have that kind of faith, and to be fair, like Joe Newell was saying this as well, the captain, that he had faith that things would turn around. The players had faith that things would turn around. David Gray obviously had faith that things would turn around. It's a very powerful thing to believe so strongly in what you're doing that you will get there, even though all the evidence suggests otherwise. And I mean, you looked at the way they played in pre-season and in the Premier Sports Cup games, minus possibly the Kelty game, but I think you could probably mark that as a bit of an outlier, because he did make quite a few changes. In all the other games, it was fairly straightforward. I know you're playing teams from down the league who maybe haven't got other signings sorted, but I think the initial signs were good. And then to have such a damaging opening fixture, or to start off quite well and then just collapse, and then just to sort of keep that pattern going, and then have that sort of wee period where they were in winning positions, and then at the slightest sign of adversity they were crumbling, to sort of turn things around like from that. It's quite remarkable. But it maybe is an argument for giving managers time, which they don't get in modern football.
Mm-hmm.
I think case in point, look at the Sporting manager in Portugal, who took over after, and 8 games later is gone. It is a. I mean, football managers know this. They all say it, that it's it can be a short career, club to club, because it's a results business. But it would be very easy just to say, it's not working out for David Gray, to sort of make another change. But then, how much is that going to set you back? You've had this manager who's been sort of with the players since pre-season, who, I mean, I say he knows how he wants to play, but there were signs where it didn't seem to be working out. But it is worth remembering, I think, that this is a head coach in his first job, and I know he's done the interim role on 4 separate occasions for Hibs. He's been, a member of the coaching staff under a number of managers, but it's a bit different when I think you're doing it yourself week to week. And I think we maybe didn't focus on it enough, that there were going to be mistakes, there were going to be learnings sort of early in the season, but there have been, and I think so far, like, Gray has been learning from he has been learning from the mistakes, and that's sort of all you can really ask, I suppose, is that for a kind of novice manager to have time to make those mistakes, learn from them, and make sure it doesn't happen again. And the same with the players, because certainly it did look at one point you just thought there was almost like an inevitability, like you didn't know how Hibs were going to lose a game or draw a game, you just knew that it was going to happen. And I don't think it's. I mean, we looked at this earlier in the season, like would they suit playing a back three, because they changed their back three against Dundee United in that 3-2 defeat, and they did look better, and it was the best they played in a while. And then we know David Gray kind of started the season wanting to play a kind of 4-2-3-1, but it seems like he has kind of learned that doesn't get the best out of the players he's got. This sort of 3-4-1-2, 3-5-2, 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it, just seems to work. It just seems to get the best out of the players at his disposal, and that's been something that previous managers haven't maybe clocked. I mean, ironically, I think Sean Maloney wanted to play a kind of 3-4-2-1, and just watching him shoehorning players into positions that they were just so unsuited for was, you could kind of tell it was going to end badly, and it was going to end quickly, and it did. Maybe the same with Nick Montgomery, sort of very kind of insistent that this is the way I want to play, this is the formation. He ended up changing it, and didn't results weren't fantastic, but there was like a slight uptick, which probably prevented Hibs from having a kind of squeakier bum ending to the season than they actually did. So yeah, I mean, credit to David Gray for managing to get sort of bigger performances out of the same players, but also recognizing what wasn't working, making a change, a bold change, if you like, and sticking with it. Because right now it's he's sort of reaping the rewards from that. He's seeing the benefits, and whether it's the starting 11 or the players coming off the bench, we all kind of slot into it. And it's again, this is like another discussion, but you've got players coming off the bench coming into this team who don't look, they don't look out of place. Like they could quite easily be starting. And that's what you want. You want to have a setup that everyone understands, that everyone can perform in, that gets the best out of everyone, or at least the majority. And just having that sort of consistency. We talk about settled defence, but having a settled formation and players in settled positions, that can make such a huge difference as well. And I think you would have more faith, I think, in Gray if there were God forbid injuries or something else happened unforeseen that meant he had to change the system again. You would kind of have faith that he would be able to happen upon something, or be able to work some sort of tactics out that would get the best out of the players without having to change too much. And I'm not sure we would have said that a few weeks back.
No, probably not. So finally, Sunday's game against Kilmarnock, what we actually came here to speak about, truth be told. But I think you can forgive us for just kind of lingering on the recent events for a wee bit longer. But I mean, I think for the reasons we've talked about, consistency and backing up good results with more good results, does this game actually become more important because Hibs have won the derby, to then keep that going and not slip? But I mean, I don't want to, sort of get into the realms of starting to create like unrealistic expectations, because there's going to be further bumps this season. Hibs are going to, they will probably lose games that they shouldn't lose. It's going to, but I think like what kind of people want to see is like a steady trend in the right direction. But I think just in terms of continuing to, kind of establish that you're sort of winning as a habit, getting this kind of into this habit of consistency, does it take on a kind of an extra significance?
Yeah,
I know there would have been more pressure if if Hibs had lost the derby, you need to then bounce back. But I think it does add a kind of certain something to it, I think.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying before about this momentum and sort of proving that this isn't just a kind of lucky streak, if you like. I mean, if you were being incredibly cynical, you could look at it and say, well, Aberdeen are on a bad run of form, Hearts are on a bad run of form, Ross County have struggled away from home, obviously not most recently beaten Dundee, but when they came to Easter Road, they'd struggled away from home for over a year. And you could be incredibly cynical and say, well, Hibs were playing them at the right time. But you also can only play what's in front of you, and we absolutely have seen Hibs this season and in previous seasons far too often go into games and it's not so much like, oh, this should be a win, but it's like, Hibs should be looking to get 3 points here, and they just it's just a kind of, I don't even know what the right word is, but they end up making such a hash of it that you just think, well, what's happened there? So I think that it would have been very easy for Hibs to sort of go into some of these games and just try and play it safe, try and get a point. But I think the fact that sort of David Gray's gone into these games and thought, no, we can win these games. Here's my game plan for how we're going to win it. And in some cases, thinking, oh yeah, Ross Trent is a good example. You're 2-1 up. You could make a defensive change, which he has done previously, and it's not worked out. But instead, he made an attacking change, and Hibs got a third goal. So obviously there is a kind of feeling that Hibs have turned this corner in terms of self-belief, in terms of performances, in terms of results as well. Proof there in climbing the table. But yes, it is sort of these games where you think, like, on paper you'd be saying Hibs have got more chance of beating Kilmarnock at home than they have beating Hearts or Tynecastle, which is, we could debate that for another full video. But I mentioned this at the top of the show, and see people mention it in the comments, that Hibs have been sort of chronically bad at getting a good result and then not being able to follow it up. We saw this towards the end of Lee Johnson's tenure, when they were getting really good results in Europe and then just not being able to do it at the weekend. In the league, your bread and butter, if you like. And it maybe goes back to that sort of not too high, not too low thing, that David Gray will probably have let the players bask in the glory of derby victory for a limited period of time, and then it's right, park that, full focus is on Kilmarnock and how we get 3 points against a difficult team that's just put 4 past Aberdeen without reply. And I think that has to be the sort of the main focus now. And it does, as you say, it does become a much bigger game, because there's more riding on it, I think, because it's like, right, you've won the derby, you've created a wee bit of history. Sounds insane saying it, but you've created a wee bit of history by being the first Hibs team to win a derby at Tynecastle in 5 years.
Yeah.
So prove that it wasn't just a lucky result. Prove that this hasn't just been a kind of a positive streak based on the teams you're playing. Just go out there and do what you've been doing, get the 3 points, and just keep doing that game in, game out. That's really all they can do. But you just feel like if it is a negative result tomorrow, then it obviously damages Hibs' kind of ambitions for the season. It probably weakens that connection between the fans and the players, because we obviously know football fans. We're all football fans. We can be very fickle at times. It will damage that, but it will also sort of probably bring around those questions of like, oh, the Hibs players can only get up for big games. They can't sort of keep it going, etc., etc. So, yeah, if anything, tomorrow's game, they're all big games, but tomorrow's game does become even more important because they won the derby, and it just has to be 3 points to kind of stop these sort of lingering concerns or feelings that Hibs are only sort of one result away from kind of reverting to type. Like, we've seen it so often, and there should be a lot of confidence from the players going into this game that they've gone somewhere that traditionally Hibs have sort of found it difficult to get results at, and they've got a result. They're back home. Easter Road should be bouncing. Football for a fiver as well. Should mention
sold
that.
out, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yeah, full house. So another. Again, Hibs have done this before, and they've got the custard pie in the face. So I mean, that's another reason to ensure that you're putting in a performance and getting 3 points. Because as well, you've got people who are going there who will be saying, "Oh, it's a fiver. I'll take the kids for the first time," or maybe somebody like a lapsed fan who's not been for a while. They go along, they see Easter Road full. It's a good performance. They feel that connection with the players, and they think, I enjoyed that. I'm going to get a half season ticket, or I'm going to come back. and that's obviously a positive thing. So I mean, no pressure on the players and David Gray, but it's a heck of a lot riding on this thing.
Yeah, on that note, I think we'll leave it there for today, folks. If you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, could I please urge you to do us a festive favour and join us by hitting that subscribe button. Not only will it help us continue to grow the channel and keep bringing you these videos, you'll also get a notification every time we go live, so you won't miss any of these shows. If you're heading along to Easter Road tomorrow, do enjoy the game. We'll be back to speak to you very, very soon. Until then, take care. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.